big mistake. Local health systems need supplies, training, screening, staff, etc., and they need it now. What did you see in that meeting? I mean, what was the problem?
Well, that was an extraordinary montage that you just played, and that attitude was reflected in the meeting. Inside that meeting in early February were the president's top coronavirus experts. It was led by then Chief of Staff Mulvaney and Secretary of HHS Alex Azar, and they were just incredibly confident that they had beaten coronavirus. At that time, there were only a few cases here. They were reflecting what the president said in those clips because they thought that the travel bans had kept it out of the United States. We told them that they needed money, and they needed money fast in order to buy supplies, in order to hire more staff. And they told us that they didn't need any funding, that they had everything that they needed. And I walked out of that closed-door briefing just with chills running down my spine, because many of us on both sides of the aisle knew what this virus had done in China. We knew it was a matter of time before it arrived here, and it was just shocking how cavalier the administration was. This was at a time when the president really, viewed this as a hoax. He said so on TV, and the reason that we're in the crisis that we are today is not because of anything that China did, is not because of anything the WHO did. It's because of what this president did. It's because he didn't take this virus seriously. We weren't going to be able to keep every case out of the United States, but we didn't have to have tens of thousands of people dying.
It's clear the WHO, has said very positive things about China and kind of downplayed, their lack of transparency. Even the Chinese death tolls, right now just seems ludicrously low, the official death toll in China. I'm wondering what you make of the president now focusing on the WHO, though he previously had praised them for China for transparency and the WHO's work.
Well, pulling money out of the WHO has nothing to do with keeping America safe. It's all about the president's attempt to try to find scapegoats. Let's be clear. Early on in this crisis, there was no bigger cheerleader for China and their response to coronavirus than President Donald J. Trump. It was President Trump who, on 12 different occasions, praised President Xi's efforts to control coronavirus, specifically praised China's transparency, which we now know was a complete joke. And so the president is engaging in, sort of middle school grade deflection, trying to blame the WHO for something that he was responsible for. And the fact of the matter is, well, the WHO is imperfect. In the early days of this virus, they invested in testing. They created, by the end of February, 1.4 million tests in collaboration with a German manufacturer. And so had we been working with the WHO early on, we might be in a very different position here, being able to test twice as many, 3 times as many people as we have. We'll be weaker as a nation if we pull out of the WHO, because there's no way to stand up an effective international anti-pandemic program without them. This is just about the president's attempts to try to blame others for problems that he created.
Yeah, I know earlier you had said that there was a very coordinated effort amongst the White House and their allies to try and find scapegoats for the fatal mistakes that the president made during the early stages of the virus. You believe that the president made mistakes that ended up costing lives?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. The fact that we didn't start buying up medical supplies, masks, gowns, face shields, early on, when we were begging for that funding in early February, the fact that the president didn't put in place an effective plan to develop new tests, the fact that he didn't work with governors and mayors to push social distancing measures earlier has cost lives. Listen, let's be honest. There is effectively no response to coronavirus from the administration. All the president does is hold press conferences. Everything that has been done to effectively control this virus has been done by governors. My governor has had to find almost every single face shield and every mask that has been dispensed to hospitals. It's been my governor that has had to decide when to close schools and when to close businesses. It's my governor who's organizing a process of identify, trace, and quarantine. The president talks in these press conferences, but all of the response has been left to governors. And so if the president had had a more effective national plan from the beginning, we would be in a very different position than we are today.
Do you watch the coronavirus briefings? Because I've just been struck how they have now devolved to the president essentially hijacking them to, talk as long as he wants, an hour, more than an hour sometimes, before any scientists really, we get an update from the scientists about what's actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, my sense right now is that the president does the press conferences and other people are trying to manage the virus. We did a call last week with the vice president and a team of experts, and there were really good people on that call. But it's hard when the president is this disengaged, when he is so focused on trying to save himself politically and not terribly interested in learning the details of how you fight a vicious virus like this. I tune into bits and pieces of these press conferences because a lot of my constituents are watching them, and I want to be kept up to date. But they're just for show. They're just to keep the president occupied on a daily basis. It's others in the administration that's doing the work, but they don't really have clear guidance from the commander-in-chief.
Yeah. Senator Chris Murphy, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just ahead, a Harvard researcher joins us.